Tidligere i dag talte jeg med den græske udenrigsminister Stαύρος Lambrinidis og spurgte ham, i hvor høj grad Grækenland føler sig ansvarlig for den galopperende europæiske gældskrise.
We feel responsible for changing Greece, and by doing so for safeguarding the euro and safeguarding Europe in the midst of a major crisis that is not just Greek. After Greece was safeguarded on the 21st of July, we saw attacks on Italy, attacks on Spain. I think it became very clear, given that Portugal and Ireland are also in support programs, that scapegoating Greece in this crisis was not the right answer.
So scapegoating is not the right answer, but you don't feel more responsible than Spain or Italy?
I feel responsible for having had a country that is rich but was very poorly managed for a number of years, that had an explosive combination of debt and deficit, that was not invested in growth as it should have been. I feel responsible for changing all those ills of my country. I feel grateful to all the countries in Europe that have lent me money. I emphasize lent. These are not handouts. These are loans that we received and that we are paying already back and will pay back to the last euro. We feel great gratitude and responsibility towards those people.
But could you describe for us, how did Greece end up in this mess?
In the past 5 years, we doubled our debt from about 140 billion euros to about 280 billion euros. And this is money that was not invested as it should have been in education, in health, in growth. So in a sense, we had a very badly managed country. We also have a country that for decades has had some structural issues and problems. We are called now to correct everything very fast, and we are doing it. And this is very, very painful. Many people say, well, the Greeks lived beyond their means, shouldn't they suffer now? My answer to that is they are suffering. They are suffering extensively. We are changing the country in only 1 year in 2010 in ways that has never happened before. So we are assuming all the responsibility we must assume.
I know that the government you're representing took over in 2009. Seen in hindsight, have you done enough in these 2 years?
I believe so, but I also know we need to do much more. We cut the deficit by 5 percentage points. Never happened ever in the history of the euro. 10% of the public sector employees left only last year, were never replaced. We increased taxes dramatically and increased revenues more than any other European country. We decreased government spendings because we cut salaries, we cut pensions. All that in a year. And at the same time, we rehauled our pension system. We changed entirely the municipalities in Greece, much fewer, much more efficient. We have a statistics agency that is independent from the government. All those things in only 1 year are a revolution of sorts. Could we have done more? Sure, and we're doing more now. We could have privatized faster. We're doing it now.
But why did the debt have to grow to such an extent before the needed action was taken?
Well, because no one was supervising Greece or other countries in Europe effectively for a number of years. And so when the debt started rising and the deficit started rising beyond any limit, there was no one there to say, let's stop this. Now, I remind you, this began almost in the mid-2000s when initially France and Germany, two major countries in Europe, had exceeded the 3% limit. And measures were taken, but the impression given at the time was that Europe was not really that committed in meeting those limits. Then Greece came, and some other countries, but Greece was unfortunately the largest of them, to violate these rules. I always say that there's a value of responsibility that Europe has and that countries have towards Europe that we violated. There's also a value of solidarity upon which Europe was also based that we are rediscovering now. It has also been violated. We need to get both these values on the table again to get out of this crisis.
But let me take a concrete example. You haven't been collecting taxes. That's very hard to understand here in Denmark, where we pay a lot in tax.
You're absolutely right. And this is the one major thing that we're changing as we speak. New tax laws, new mechanisms for collection, and primarily hitting those rich people in Greece who have never paid what they should pay. This is a very difficult process to which we're absolutely committed. Taxes have already been collected more than ever before, and there will be much more in the future.
But Are you actually collecting taxes now?
Yes. As I told you, we increased government revenues last year in the midst of a recession, mind you, more than any other European country compared to our GDP. We are doing what we have to do, but we also know the limits of what we've done and what the more that we have to do. We are not saying give us a blank check. We're not saying we are perfect. We are not. This is such a huge program to change in a year or two that you make mistakes, but we are changing.
What kind of Greece do you see in the future? A Greece very dependent on tourism or other sources of income?
I see a Greece and I see a Denmark and I see a Germany and I see an Italy that are based on growth that relates to the competitive advantages. I don't see a one-size-fits-all solution, but I see the necessity for growth throughout Europe on that model. So I see a Greece that of course is based on tourism, but I see a Greece that is based on shipping. I see a Greece that is based on green energy. And green energy for us is, if you like, the major competitive advantage. We have sun, we have sea, we have wind. We have the oil of the 21st century. You need to invest in that, and that's exactly what we're doing now, and that is what we're calling, in fact, major companies throughout Europe and around the world, and Denmark certainly has them, to see the investment opportunities and contribute to that growth.
But I think the big question is, how are you going to make your economy sustainable?
That is the big question. And the question is, can you do that if you only cut, if you only fiscally consolidate? And the answer to that question is no. Whereas fiscal consolidation is absolutely necessary, Greece has to get back to the right path, and that is going to be very painful for many years. You also need a message to the markets and to your own people that there's a light in the end of the tunnel. And that light is growth. What Europe decided on the 21st of July was to give money in addition to fiscally consolidating for growth projects. And what we have decided by privatizing approximately 50 billion euros of Greek property in the next few years is to engage our partners in Europe in this process. There are mutual advantages here, and one has to look at this not as a zero-sum game, but as a win-win situation, which in fact it is. We have to focus on this now, and if we do, I think we will all be winners.
Minister, once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.